Hello everyone. Today let's see about an indicator of health called DALY. DALY stands for Disability Adjusted Life Years. That is DALY. Before going to the topic, let's see how DALY was first introduced. In WHO's World Health Report in the year 1990 stated that psychiatric conditions along with neurological disorders accounted for 28% of people lived with disability. But these psychiatric and neurological disorders accounted for only 1.4% of all deaths in a year, and also 1.1% of years lost from life expectancy. As we see here, if we see the data, the mortality rate due to psychiatric conditions and also neurological disorders is relatively low, that is 1.4% compared to other diseases. But the disability of these conditions is pretty much high. So the WHO came with new indicator, relatively new indicator to measure the burden of disease called as DALY, which is DALY is the indicator which combines mortality and morbidity into a single metric, into a single measurement. With this introduction, let's see the definition of DALY. DALY is the measure of overall disease burden expressed in number of years lost due to ill health or disability or early death. Let us understand this definition with an example. Let's take a person's birth year and his life expectancy year. During the course of his time, the person gets a disease here and is disabled for some period of time. Then the disease gets resolved and he continues to be in good health for some period, and again the disease he got affected by the disease and he's got disabled. After that, he is living with the good health after the disability got resolved, and finally he gets a disease which makes him disabled, and finally lead to his death. So if you see here, the person throughout his lifetime he got disabled for a certain period of time, here and here, and he lost some years due to death, that is premature death, from his life expectancy. So the DALY year is the years lived with disability, that is here, here, we have to calculate the duration of year the person lived with disability along with the year lost due to premature death from his life expectancy. That is this year. Expectancy. As we see here, in DALY, we are calculating the years lived with disability and the number of years lost due to premature death from his life expectancy. Now let's see how DALY is calculated. DALY is calculated by adding two indicators called years lost due to disability, years lost due to disability along with years of life lost. Years lost due to disability and years of lost life. Let's see how YLD and YLL is calculated separately. First, let's see how years of lost life, that is YLL, is calculated. YLL is calculated by number of deaths at each age multiplied by expected remaining years of life, and the expected remaining years of life is calculated from the years lost due to premature death from his life expectancy, and the life expectancy used here is the global standard life expectancy, which is the standard life expectancy of Japan, because Japan has the highest life expectancy among the world population. So YLL is N into L, where N stands for number of death at each age and L stands for expected remaining years of life lost due to premature mortality. Let us now see how YLD is calculated. YLD is calculated by a formula called I into dW into L, where I stands for incidence of the disease in a year, and L stands for duration of the disease until remission or death. That is, L is an average duration of the disease the person will have until the remission of the disease or to his death. And finally, a weighting factor called DW. DW is disease weighting factor. DW is the disease weighting factor which reflects the severity of the disease. Of a disease on a scale of 0 to 1, that is, the more the value of the disease, it is more severe. For example, diabetes has a severity of 0.20, femur fracture has a disability weighting of 0.50, etc. It is the disability weighting factor is given by WHO. It varies for each and every disease. And here are the examples of disability waiting for various diseases, in which it is given by WHO, in which Alzheimer has an disability of 0.06 and blindness has a disability weightage of 0.19, and the each and every disease is given in scale by WHO. And here we can see tuberculosis, the disability weightage is 0.217, and for cancers, oral cancers, the disability weighting is 0.09. To summarize the calculation of DALY is calculated by YLD plus YLL, where YLL is the number of deaths at each age multiplied by expected remaining years of life lost due to premature death, and YLD is incidence of a disease multiplied by waiting factor of that particular disease, and also the average duration of the disease until the remission or the death. Now let us see the DALY calculation with an example. Let us take a birth of a person, and his life expectancy is 85 years. At the age of 50, he develops diabetes. And he lives with diabetes for the duration of 5 years, and the death of the person occurs due to the complications of diabetes at the age of 55 years. Here we can see that the person lived with disability for 5 years, and also he has lost around 30 years due to premature death from his life expectancy. As we know, DALY is YLL added with YLD. Let's first calculate YLL from the above example. As we know, YLL is N into L, where N is number of death at each age. Here we have taken only as one person as example, so N here is 1, multiplied by number of years lost due to premature mortality. Here the person has lost 30 years from his life expectancy, so L here will be 30 years. So finally YLL is 30. Now coming to the next one, that is YLD. YLD is calculated by incidence into waiting factor multiplied by L, and here we can see for diabetes the waiting factor given by WHO is 0.20. Here we can see we have taken a single person as example, so the incidence, that is number of disease, will be 1, multiply the waiting factor for diabetes, that is 0.20, and the average duration. The duration the person had diabetes is for 5 years, so multiply by 5. Finally we get YLD as 1, and finally DALY is 1 added with 30, that is YLD added with YLL. Finally we get 31 DALY, and 1 DALY means 1 year of healthy life lost. And from this the person we have taken an example as lost 31 years of healthy life. Here we saw how DALY is calculated for a single person, but usually DALY is calculated for a total population to measure the burden of a disease for that population or the country. Now coming to the advantages of DALY, as we saw earlier, DALY is an indicator which combines mortality and morbidity into single measurement, which further helps to compare one disease with other health conditions. And it is useful in assessing the impact of any prevention strategies that is to be implemented to prevent the occurrence of disease. Impact of prevention strategies. And to compare the burden of a disease of a country with other countries. And is also useful in formulating the health policies of the country. And coming to the limitations of DALY, as we saw in the formula, the DALY is calculated by adding YLL plus YLD, where YLD needs the value of incidence of the disease in the population. During this calculation, there may be any subclinical cases where we have missed in calculation. So those cases can affect the values of final values of DALY. So subclinical cases affects the final value. And these are the advantages and disadvantages of DALY. Finally, to summarize, DALY stands for Disability Adjusted Life Years, and it combines mortality and morbidity indicator into a single measurement. And coming to definition, it is the measurement of overall disease burden expressed in number of years lost due to ill health or disability or due to yearly death. And we saw that the formula for DALY calculation is YLD plus YLL, and YLD stands for years of life lost due to disability, and YLL stands for years of lost life. And we saw the calculation for YLL and the YLD separately. And finally, for example of we saw the example of the calculation of DALY. And finally, coming to advantages, as we saw, this is a single measurement that combines mortality and morbidity. It helps to understand the impact of prevention strategies in preventing the disease, and also compare the burden of disease of two countries, and also helps in formulating policies. And finally, disadvantage is since we are calculating the incidence, there may be some subclinical cases which can be missed from the calculation, which affects the final calculation of DALY. Thank you.